Ladies and gentlemen, I am back after a 1-week break. I know that you guys missed me last week. I have so much that I want to say, of course. There's a lot of things have happened in the news. The question of the day today is the letter Q redundant? I'm just kidding, guys. That's not actually the question of the day. I'm just telling you guys that I did have a 10-minute debate with my husband on a walk. I've been holding this inside, and I just think I want to bring this to you guys in your homes. I think the letter Q is a little bit redundant. I'm thinking about it because my child is learning his ABCs, and every time they get to Q, the guy on the screen is like, Q makes the qua sound. If we didn't have the letter Q, we would just be using a K and a W. It's actually not a needed letter to produce any word. Like, you can't just say, we don't need A. Of course you need A. You can't produce the word apple, that sound, without the letter A. But any Q word, you can actually spell it out without the letter Q. Anyways, guys, that was a little sidebar, and now you're going to be thinking about it all day. The real question of the day is, do you know what the Streisand effect is? You might. It's definitely happening right now pertaining to Kyrie Irving. Plus, we're going to cover Bad Baby. I think that's how you say her name. You probably know her better as the Cash Me Outside. How about that? Yeah, that girl. Remember her from the appearance on Dr. Phil, which was years ago? Well, she's been invited to give a speech to the Oxford Union about her business endeavors. Business endeavors meaning making $50 million a year on OnlyFans. Yep. All that and more today on Candace Owens. Okay, guys, I don't want to get carried away, but the answer is, of course, Q is a redundant letter. You just don't need it. You literally don't need Q. The alphabet should have just been 25 letters. Back to the real question of the day, the Streisand effect, in case you don't know what it is, it's a phenomenon that occurs when an attempt to hide, remove, or censor information has the unintended consequence of increasing awareness of that information, often via the internet. And it is actually indeed named after Barbra Streisand. What essentially happened was that she attempted to suppress the California Coastal Records Project's photograph of her cliff-top residence in Malibu, California. Now, because she went through tremendous efforts to suppress it, it actually increased awareness of her house, and it inadvertently drew more attention to the photograph itself back in 2003. So now we call it the Streisand effect when that happens, when you try to censor something and then everybody starts to look it up and wants to watch it or to see it. Bringing this up today because unless you have quite literally been hiding under a rock, you have been paying attention to the fact that the only topic of discussion over the past 4 days has been Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is a basketball player, a tremendous basketball player who is in a lot of trouble with the NBA. Now, why is Kyrie in trouble with the NBA? Well, I want to make sure that we unpack this story slowly so that you can form opinions that are based on facts and not based on the emotion that is perpetually in the media. So Kyrie Irving tweeted this. If you're listening to this podcast, there is no commentary on the tweet whatsoever. It is simply a link to Amazon.com to a documentary that is entitled Hebrews to Negroes. Wake Up, Black America. So he essentially tweeted a link to a documentary that is available for every single person to watch on Amazon. It's not like he directed your attention to an obscure website. He just dropped the link. And this created an absolute firestorm online. The next thing that I saw was a statement that the Brooklyn Nets put out in regards to Kyrie's press conference. So there was a firestorm. Kyrie had a press conference where the journalists pressed him on why he shared this documentary. And the Brooklyn Nets issued this statement regarding that press conference. They said, quote, "Over the last several days, we have made repeated attempts to work with Kyrie Irving to help him understand the harm and danger of his words and actions, which began with him publicizing a film containing deeply disturbing anti-Semitic hate. We believed that taking the path of education in this challenging situation would be the right one and thought that we had made progress with our joint commitment to eradicating hate and intolerance. We were dismayed today when given an opportunity in a media session that Kyrie refused to unequivocally say that he has no anti-Semitic beliefs nor acknowledge specific hateful material in the film. This was not the first time that he had the opportunity, but failed to clarify. Such failure to disavow anti-Semitism when given a clear opportunity to do so is deeply disturbing, is against the values of our organization, and constitutes conduct detrimental to the team. Accordingly, we are of the view that he is currently unfit to be associated with the Brooklyn Nets. We had decided that Kyrie will serve a suspension without pay until he satisfies a series of objective remedial measures that address the harmful impact of his conduct, and the suspension period served is no less than 5 games. Wow, that's a very strong statement from the Brooklyn Nets. They're saying that he is unfit to be associated based on the words that he shared during this press conference. He offered no words and no commentary when he shared a link to this documentary, again, freely available on Amazon for any person to watch. But apparently the words of his press conference is what has set them off, and they are realizing that he is not condemning anti-Semitism. So when I saw this post, I went, wow, what did Kyrie Irving say? Obviously, he must have said something that was horrific and which all of us should get on board and condemn. He must have said something that was so bad that the Brooklyn Nets, the NBA Association, which painted the floors with Black Lives Matter, right? And even though Black Lives Matter was leading to looting and rioting and people were dying in these BLM loots and riots, they still stood by and said, this is totally fine because Black people have to be able to express themselves. So obviously, reading the statement, he must have really tripped into some territory of wrongness that is worthy of the suspension. Then I actually listened to Kyrie Irving in his words, and I could not believe that the Nets had the ability to say that he was unfit to associate with them based on these words. Take a listen.
Hindsight, are you sorry for the hurt that your posts caused people?
I'll take my responsibility for posting that. Some things that were questionable in there, untrue. Like I said, in the first time you guys asked me when I was sitting on that stage, I don't believe everything that everybody posts. It's a documentary. So I'll take my responsibility.
It seems like Adam Silver wanted to hear the word "I apologize," or in your mind, you said, "I didn't mean to cause any harm." Were you apologizing, or did you not apologize?
I didn't mean to cause any harm. I'm not the one that made the documentary.
What are the specific things in the documentary that you don't believe are true and that you don't believe represent your morals?
I think some of the criticism of the Jewish faith in the community, for sure. Some points made in there that were unfortunate.
Kyrie, are you surprised that you did hurt people?
Surprised that I did hurt people?
Are you surprised that reaction and some of the things that you did hurt people?
Yeah, I think I can ask a better question. It's just, where were you when I was a kid, figuring out that 300 million of my ancestors are buried in America? Where were you guys asking those same questions when I was a kid learning about the traumatic events of my familial history and what I'm proud to come from and why I'm proud to stand here and why when I repeat myself that I'm not going to stand down, it has nothing to do with dismissing any other race or group of people. I'm just proud of my heritage and what we've been through. And the fact that this has pinned me against the Jewish community, and I'm here answering questions of whether or not I'm sorry or not on something I didn't create, and it was something I shared, and I'm telling everybody I'm taking responsibility, then that's where I sit. So, these same questions that you guys ask, me dealing with it as being a melanated, pigmented person all around the world and dealing with racial biases against my skin color, demeaning me because of my religious beliefs, and I'm still sitting in the seat standing. So I take my full responsibility. Again, I'll repeat it, for posting something on my Instagram or Twitter that may have had some unfortunate falsehoods in it. But I also am a human being that's 30 years old, and I've been growing up in a country that's told me that I wasn't worth anything, and I came from a slave class, and I come from a people that are meant to be treated the way we get treated every day. So I'm not here to compare anyone's atrocities or tragic events that their families have dealt with generations of time. I'm just here to continue to expose things that our world continues to put in darkness. I'm a light. I'm a beacon of light. That's what I'm here to do. You guys ask me questions about basketball, I give you my expert opinion. You guys ask me about other things, I give you my opinion, and it's met with whatever you believe the perception or the deception is. You guys investigate my life every day, and you justify it by serving your own purpose, which I honor. I would like the same respect in return, figuring out just like anyone else. So please keep that same energy when we're talking about anti-other things, because just because I post a documentary doesn't mean I'm anti-Semitic, and doesn't mean that I'm automatically standing with everyone that is believing in that. So it's unfortunate timing that we're in, but I'm glad that I could stand on the truth, because I'm not afraid of these mics, these cameras. I used to be, looking everyone in the eye and telling them the truth, and I'm proud of who I am. Any label that you put on me, I'm able to dismiss because I studied. I know the Oxford Dictionary, you look it up, right? Just one of the biggest mistakes I had in being a kid was not knowing European or Western language until I started looking it up and understanding the definitions and why they say, if you want to trick a black person, put it in a book. I was wondering my whole life why they said that. Now I'm 30 years old and I know reading is a superpower because it helps me understand where I'm going and where I come from. Like a tree with roots.
Kyrie, the documentary listed among falsehoods, it said the Holocaust didn't happen. Do you believe the Holocaust
those falsehoods
happened?
are unfortunate. And it's not that I don't believe in the Holocaust. I never said that. Never, ever have said it. It's not come out of my mouth. I never tweeted it. I never liked anything like it. So the Holocaust in itself is an event that means something to a large group of people that suffered something that could have been avoided. No one said we had to practice racism. No one said we had to treat each other like garbage. No one said that I had to stand here today and understand that many people that come from generations 60 years ago, 40 years ago, enslaved some of my ancestors still, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, and it's still going on. And you guys are asking me, respectfully, to speak on something that was a documentary that I had nothing to do with. I didn't make it. So just please keep that same energy when you guys are addressing me.
Kyrie, for the record, do you have any anti-Semitic beliefs?
Again, I'm gonna repeat. I don't know how the label becomes justified because you guys ask me the same questions over and over again. But this is not gonna turn into a spin around cycle of questions upon questions. I told you guys how I felt. I respect all walks of life and embrace all walks of life. That's where I sit.
I think what people want to hear, though, is just a yes or no on that question. Yes or no.
I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from.
What does that mean?
I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from.
Kyrie, did you personally meet with the ADL?
I was informed that they wanted to have a meeting, and we handled it.
So I wanted to play that press conference in its entirety because it is important. It's important to underscore, first and foremost, the absurdity of the media, the way that they are behaving in that press conference. They're essentially approaching him, pretending that every single word of the documentary that Kyrie Irving did not make, he has to answer for. Could you imagine a world in which everything you watch, right, you are somehow now responsible for every single word within it? Notably absent, by the way, is the press going up to Jeff Bezos, who is the owner of Amazon, who runs Amazon, and saying, hey, why did you allow this documentary to be on Amazon? There's no outcry. There's no everybody delete your Amazon accounts because of this documentary. They are putting this firmly and squarely on Kyrie Irving, which is problematic in the first place. I want to also make it clear that in listening to his words, it is pointedly ridiculous that they would say that he is unfit to be associated with. There was nothing that he said, but I would say that he is unfit to be associated with because he very clearly condemns the falsities in the movie. He says, I do not think this way. He actually calls them falsehoods that are unfortunate, right? He says that that is not what I said. Do not attribute every word in this documentary to what my beliefs are. He also very clearly stipulates to them when they ask him, are you anti-Semitic? He clarifies that he's not anti-Semitic. Now, why is Kyrie Irving saying that? Why is he saying, I can't be anti-Semitic? Why is he saying that a couple of breaths after he talks about the Oxford Dictionary? So here is the definition of Semitic straight from the Oxford Dictionary. It's relating to or denoting a family of languages that includes Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic, and certain ancient languages such as Phoenician and Akkadian, constituting the main subgroup of the Afro-Asiatic family. The second definition listed is relating to the people who speak Semitic languages, especially Hebrew and Arabic. So clearly what Kyrie Irving is saying based on that definition is that he believes that he is Semitic, that he hails from maybe Africa or from Asia, which is what the documentary explores. And I'm going to give you my feedback because obviously I watched the documentary after listening to this, right? His feedback is, do not make the word Semitic just about Jewish people in America. It includes a lot of other people, okay? Now, you might disagree with that. You might disagree with the Oxford Dictionary definition, but you can't be mad at him for stating the actual Oxford Dictionary definition. The last thing that I want to say here, just regarding his press conference, and I want to say this really from the heart, because there was so much pressure that was put upon me to condemn Kyrie Irving, right? To condemn Kyrie Irving based on this press conference, to basically decide that his pain is irrelevant. When I watched this press conference, I felt Kyrie's pain. I felt his pain, and I will say this emotionally and not rationally, as a Black person. People don't often think about how bizarre it is that we don't know where we come from, right? We don't know. If you ask the majority of white people, they'll say, oh, my family's from Scotland. My husband's family can go back so many generations and talk about where they're from in England. And when you talk to most people, they have this sort of cultural understanding of their history. We don't. It's a weird feeling. You do sort of feel out of place. And yes, of course, it's because of the slave trade. And I'm not throwing that on anybody. I'm not saying that it's somebody else's fault. But what Kyrie Irving says is that you can't pit atrocity against another atrocity and basically say that his pain doesn't matter, that his noble pursuit of wanting to know where he came from, even if he landed on the wrong conclusions, is something that he is valid in feeling. It's a journey that he is valid in wanting to go on and wanting to partake in. So no, I'm not going to turn my back on Kyrie Irving and pretend that he's an awful human being based on this press conference. It's wrong. There are a lot of people that feel that they are in pain from the Jewish community because they're upset that he shared this link. But also, if you're not paying attention, there are a lot of Black Americans that are telling you that they feel that they're in pain because you're telling them that they're not allowed to feel the way they feel about not understanding their roots. Following the statement that was made by the Brooklyn Nets, they then came back and they have listed the 6 steps that Kyrie Irving must complete to return back to the Brooklyn Nets. And here's what they are. Ready? The first thing that Kyrie Irving must do is apologize for linking the movie. Let's stop right there. That is an absurdity, okay? It's an absurdity because LeBron James, if you do not remember, has never been more hateful than throughout the entire BLM riots. In fact, he notoriously posted a thing on Twitter, which was regarding the Jacob Blake police shooting, which they were valid in attacking Jacob Blake, who was attacking them first. They would have been dead if they did not take action. But he basically posted something that said to the police officers, "You're next." A threat to police officers for doing their job and trying to have a violent criminal stop attacking them. Nobody cared. Nobody cared at all. Nobody cares about his rhetoric against white people. Nobody cares that he has lied and said that we are literally being hunted in the streets. Remember when he talks about that during BLM? And that has inspired hatred toward white people. The NBA never cared about any of that. They never told him that he would be in trouble for any of these tweets. In fact, they love LeBron James because he gets right in line with whatever they say. Kyrie Irving, on the other hand, which, by the way, is my true opinion, really got the NBA association angry when he refused to get the COVID vaccine. So despite the fact that Kyrie Irving quietly supported the BLM movement, he gave millions of dollars to the George Floyd family, despite the fact that he is by no estimation a conservative or on the right, they're angry at him because they feel that they have some ownership over his body. And when he took a quiet protest and stance and decided that he was not going to get the COVID vaccine, which now has been proven a completely valid stance, I was one of the early ones too. You're not just going to put something in my body because you're telling everybody that they should do it immediately to save the world. It didn't make sense. And the NBA is angry because Kyrie Irving held that stance. And what better way than to try to hang him for sharing a link to a movie that the overwhelming majority of people that are weighing in did not watch. The movie is 3.5 hours long. But nope, the first thing he must do is apologize for linking the movie absent any comment. The second thing that they want him to do is to complete the anti-hate causes that the Nets first mentioned on November 2nd. It included a $500,000 donation to the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. But last week, the ADL CEO, Jonathan Greenblatt, said the organization could not accept the money while Irving refused to apologize. So by the way, he should never give a single red cent to the ADL. They are a hate group. They call me, every single person, a hateful human being. They're essentially just like BLM, right? They say you can buy your way back into society. It's like indulgences if you just give us a lot of money. What? That's completely foolish. No, you should not just take $500,000 from somebody in order to get his job back. I mean, how ridiculous is that? It's extortion at its finest. The third thing that they want Kyrie Irving to do is to complete sensitivity training. Okay, whatever that means. The fourth thing is that he must complete anti-Semitic and hate training, both of which will be created by the Nets. The fifth thing he must do is to meet with Jewish community leaders in Brooklyn. The sixth thing that he must do is meet with Nets owner Joe Tsai to demonstrate the lessons learned and that the gravity of the harm caused is understood. So this is now becoming basically a humiliation ritual, right? So I can't imagine just having shared a link to a movie, even, yes, okay, the movie had some falsehoods. He's acknowledged that. He immediately acknowledged it, which was the right thing to do, that there are some things in here that maybe are not correct. He took ownership over that. But despite doing that, they're just humiliating him. They just want to humiliate him. They want to take money from him, and they want to show to everybody else that we have the full power and control over our players. And this gets into what Kyrie Irving said about feeling like he's still an emotional and a spiritual slave in this country. I've talked about this often, and it so resonates with me. Again, I'm coming from a position of feeling and not a position necessarily of fact, but I have always had this feeling that I'm not really free, right? I'm not really free to be a Black person unless I abide by somebody else's rules. I'm not really free to say what I think unless I abide by somebody else's rules. For a very long time, it was difficult for me to say I do not support Black Lives Matter. I think that they are extortionists. I do not want to have to be a victim because of the color of my skin. I don't want to fund other groups and make them more powerful and secretly know that they're not actually helping Black Americans get ahead. And I felt relegated almost to that position based on the color of my skin. That's what it means to be an emotional slave, right? Is to be told perpetually that you have to be a victim. And now, in many ways, they're proving his point, that he is trying to express to you guys that he has held on to this hurt from the time he was a little boy of not knowing where he came from. And he felt that this documentary, which, by the way, I watched, and it looks like a PowerPoint. It is so low budget and it's so poorly done and it's very confusing. But despite me feeling all those ways about the documentary, I do understand why the documentary makers, as Black people, wanted to go on this journey to simply try to understand where they came from. Their conclusions potentially wrong. So let's relegate those conclusions to a debate. Let's have a conversation. Let's not further a divide between Black Americans and Jewish Americans who are fighting to say, no, I'm the biggest victim. No, I'm the biggest victim. No, maybe you have to give $500,000 to BLM to understand how we feel. No, you have to give $500 to the ADL to understand how we feel. Why don't we actually sit down and understand that there are a lot of people who are valid in the way that they feel? Let's hear those individuals and not censor them, because censorship does not work. It does not make the problem go away. Do you want to know what the actual result is, by the way, of the censorship that came? The ADL is now calling for the documentary to be pulled down. This documentary, which was obscure, in which nobody would have watched, even though Kyrie Irving tweeted it, is now the #1 thing watched on Amazon. It's #1 documentary on Amazon because everybody's wondering, Streisand effect, what the heck is all of the fuss about? And beyond that, now people are watching it assuming that everything in the documentary is true. These are real comments that are happening online. Pay attention to the trends of Kyrie, right? The hashtag Kyrie on Twitter. If you go under the comments, if you go onto Facebook and you look at the discussions that are happening all across America, they believe that everything in this documentary is true because of how vicious the media was in their overreaction and how vicious they are being in their punishment towards Kyrie Irving. So what I really want to say to you guys is understand that that's how it works. If you're not going to be bold enough to have tough discussions, you're instead going to essentially hang Kyrie Irving, right, for perhaps sharing something that he shouldn't have shared without some commentary that, hey, everything in this is not true. What you're going to end up with is more people that feel that everything in the documentary is true, which is not really what you want to do. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all that I have to say about that. Okay, guys, I want to take a moment to talk to you about Black Rifle Coffee. This is my go-to coffee brand because I love the bold, strong taste and the amazing quality. They are very selective about where they source their coffee beans, and every bag is super fresh. Not only is the coffee great, but I also really love the values behind the company. Black Rifle Coffee Company is veteran founded and operated, and their mission is to help service members successfully transition from the military into entrepreneurship. They provide assistance to veterans who want to launch businesses of their own with the goal of helping more companies like Black Rifle become a reality. Black Rifle is committed to hiring 10,000 veterans, and they are well on their way. Go to blackriflecoffee.com and use promo code Candace for 10% off your first order, or when you sign up for a new Coffee Club subscription. The subscription gives you free shipping on all Coffee Club orders, early access to club deals and promotions, and special discounts from their partner brands. That's blackriflecoffee.com with promo code Candace for 10% off your first order, or when you sign up to become a Coffee Club member. Okay, now it's time for some topics du jour. Now, in case you're wondering whether or not there's more to the story pertaining to Paul Pelosi and the hammer incident at his and Nancy's residence in San Francisco, I want you to know that you're a horrible, backwards, bigoted something phobe. Just kidding, you're probably right. And the media is going to gaslight you for realizing that it's bizarre that we keep not knowing more to the story as it pertains to Paul Pelosi. Remember, he had the DUI. They just can't release the tape because they're still investigating. Bull crap. Notoriously, when Brad Parscale had a DUI, the tape was on the internet and on Twitter within minutes. But apparently, Nancy Pelosi, who to me is a part of the media mafia, there is a media mafia that is operating. There's no question about that. It's a media mafia that censored the Hunter Biden laptop because they wanted to make sure that it didn't impact the election results, which it, of course, would have. Well, this is the same media that is now censoring the Paul Pelosi story because there's a lot more to the story. We know that Paulie Paul likes to drink at the very least. We know that there's a lot of questions to be asked about how the person, Nancy Pelosi, who is the number 2 to the presidency, would not have her home all across the United States secured, right? Obviously, we know that it can't just be that easy to walk up and to get into her house. Well, the NBC made a mistake. They tried to actually report on some lingering questions. They did, in fact, report on some lingering questions. But don't worry, they immediately pulled the segment, but not before people on Twitter began circulating the segment that they pulled down. Take a listen to NBC attempting some journalism.
Craig, good morning. When officers arrived here at the Pelosi home exactly a week ago today, they initially didn't have any idea exactly what was going on. They knew they had a high priority call on their hand. What was unclear, what was happening inside the property just behind me.
This morning, Paul Pelosi is home, back at the house that became a crime scene a week ago today. NBC News learning new details about the moments police arrived. Sources familiar with what unfolded in the Pelosi residence now revealing when officers responded to the high-priority call, they were seemingly unaware they'd been called to the home of the Speaker of the House. After a knock and announce, the front door was opened by Mr. Pelosi. The 82-year-old did not immediately declare an emergency or try to leave his home, but instead began walking several feet back into the foyer toward the assailant and away from police. It's unclear if the 82-year-old was already injured or what his mental state was, say sources. According to court documents, when the officer asked what was going on, defendant smiled and said everything's good. But instantaneously, a struggle ensued as police clearly saw David DePape strike Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer. After tackling the suspect, officers rushed to Mr. Pelosi, who was lying in a pool of blood.
What we do know is he brutally attacked Mr. Pelosi and attempted to kill him.
After spending several days in the ICU, Pelosi, who is recovering from a fractured skull and serious injuries to his arm and hand, is now home, where Capitol Police remain on alert. Investigators have previously said Pelosi did not know DePape when the 42-year-old broke into his home. Why Pelosi didn't try to flee or tell responding officers he was in distress is unclear.
Fear takes over. Fear freezes people.
This morning, the 82-year-old lucky to be alive after an intruder nearly killed him in his own home.
Law enforcement officials tell us the bottom line here is this was a terrifying situation. We still don't know exactly what unfolded between Mr. Pelosi and the suspect for the 30 minutes they were alone inside that house before police arrived. Officials who were investigating this matter would not go into further details about these new details. Craig, back to you.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, though. He is lucky to be alive. Miguel Almaguer for us. Miguel, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it might be relevant that Paul Pelosi, who we're supposed to believe is a victim and had his house broken into, opened the door and told police that he was fine, right? It might be relevant to some of these lingering questions that we have. My question would be, was Paul Pelosi maybe at the bar with this guy? Did he invite him over for a little late night cocktail and things got a little haywire? That story would make sense to me, right? It's a little bizarre that the glass shards, when you're looking at them, apparently this is a break-in, but the glass shards are all on the outside. But to ask these questions would make me a conspiracy theorist, not a journalist, a question that every well-meaning journalist should be asking themselves. I don't know. We're never going to be able to find out, at least not until midterms are over, because at all costs, they must bury the story, and we may not find out beyond that. Of course, we are told that there was somebody else in the car with Paul Pelosi when he got his DUI. We don't know who it is. Maybe it was David DePape himself. David DePape, by the way, that's the name of the assailant who did in fact hit Paul Pelosi with a hammer. I'm not sure why he did it. Where did he get the hammer? Who owns the hammer? Is this a hammer that was inside the residence, therefore making it impossible for the person to have broken in with the hanger? All of these questions, again, should be asked in a world where we actually have a media that is committed to finding the truth. Instead, we have a media that is committed to acting part and parcel to our state. It's a state-run media like you would see in a communist country. And their job is to protect government officials like Nancy Pelosi, who operates like a thief, as does her husband, who is Traitor of the Year every year. I wonder how that's possible. I would again like to stress that NBC deleted this video. So in case you're thinking there is a cover-up, it is because there is clearly a cover-up happening. All right, I want to talk to you guys about a ministry that I am super passionate about, preborn pregnancy clinics. Preborn is a pro-life ministry that provides ultrasounds to life-affirming centers around the nation. Something I talk about often when it comes to the issue of abortion is how impactful it is to see your child's face and hear their heartbeat in ultrasound. It is such a profound experience and one that solidifies the reality that there is, in fact, a human being growing inside of you. Preborn understands the importance of this experience for mothers, which is why they provide ultrasounds to women who are considering abortion. When a mother sees their child and hears their heartbeat, she will more often than not choose life. One ultrasound is just $28, or you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds for $140. And now, through a match, your tax-deductible gift is doubled, saving twice as many babies' lives. To donate securely, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby. Or go to preborn.com/Candace. That's preborn.com/Candace. If you call yourself pro-life, now's the time to speak for these children. Visit preborn.com/Candace today. Moving on to the state of college campuses, which is deteriorating not just in the United States, but also abroad. Oxford University Yes, very highbrow. It's Oxford, of course. Of course, this is the kind of school you want to get into. My husband graduated from Oxford University. What a smart chap he is. Well, they have something known as the Oxford Union, where they have political thinkers come and they debate issues that are relevant. I know this because I was very honored to have received an invite from the Oxford Union, and I participated in one of these debates 2 years ago about whether or not Trump should be president. And it was great. It really is a wonderful tradition that they have. And now it's time to ask questions about the trajectory of that tradition, the trajectory of the Oxford Union, because they have now invited Bad Baby. In case you don't remember who Bad Baby is, she found her fame on Dr. Phil when she told him to cash me outside. How about that? Just honestly, just take a listen.
And all these hoes laughing like something funny.
She's talking about the audience, that they're laughing at her.
Did you say the hoes are laughing?
Yep.
So the audience are a bunch of hoes.
Yep. Catch me outside. How about that?
Huh?
Catch me outside. How about that?
Yeah, that doesn't really sound like English. Definitely not the kind of English that should land you speaking in front of the Oxford Union. Cash me outside, how about that? But that is exactly where you could cash her today. She was invited to speak at the union regarding her success. Now, by the way, do not fault this girl at all. I am a free market capitalist, and right now there is a market for stupid, and she has made $50 million in 1 year. Okay, so she should be laughing at me, right? Because this girl is wealthy and she is rich because she started an OnlyFans account. And since we live in a pornographic nation, which people were excited and sitting at the end of their seats to watch that young girl, once on Dr. Phil, turn 18, she made an incredible amount of money because she was willing to take her clothes off. So again, joke's on me. Maybe she should be speaking to the Oxford Union and explaining to people how, yeah, it is possible to make money without having a single modicum of intelligence. You just have to understand that in today's market, sex sells. In Western culture, sex sells. We are an indecent culture and we are a corroding culture. And there are a lot of people who, if they understood that, could have a lot more money than they have today. They could definitely afford money at the grocery store. They wouldn't even be concerned about inflation. Bad Baby, she's not concerned about inflation, right? She's concerned about whether she wants to fly business or first class to England so that she can speak in front of the Oxford Union. Again, sad state and commentary on the state of things today. Moving on, guys, we definitely need to jump into this story because it's important. It's important because if you don't know Dwayne Wade, speaking of the NBA, and things that NBA players condone that don't seem to impact their reputation. Dwayne Wade is a basketball player. He is married to the actress Gabrielle Union. Dwayne Wade has a son who thinks that he is a girl. And Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union believe that it is a form of acceptance to encourage these thoughts that their young son is having. So notoriously, when the son's name used to be Zion, notoriously, when Zion was 12 years old, he basically came out and said, actually, no, I'm a woman. And Gabrielle Union took him to a pride parade. And they're like, yes, we're just going to support this. Now, Zaya, now known as Zaya, he actually changed his name to Zaya legally, is getting all of these contracts for modeling, is walking runway shows because we live in this perverse society that is actually celebrating what is really a mental disorder. Right? Gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. And if you had parents that loved you and cared about you, they would want to get you help. I always correlate the transgender discussion to anorexia, right? I used to have anorexia. You can find the information pertaining to that in my book. I've talked about it openly. And I am just so grateful that as a society, we recognize that anorexia is in fact a mental disorder, right? If you are thin and you think that you are fat, you have a mental disorder. If you are thin, as I was very, very thin, and that you think that you need to control aspects of your life by not eating, as I did, then you have something that is a mental disorder, right? You're trying to relieve stress in all of the wrong ways. Fortunately, when I was young, we just said, you got to fix that. It's a problem and it's wrong. Now you have kids that have mental disorders and you would have adults that would say, you know what? You shouldn't eat today if you're anorexic. You shouldn't eat for the next 3 weeks. Let's see how long you can go without eating because I want to affirm what you believe that you are. And if you believe that you're fat and you don't want to eat for 3 weeks, I'm a loving parent and I'm going to let you do that. Yeah, it's pretty crazy to even consider that plausibility, but that is what is happening. And it is even more extreme because we are affirming individuals like Zaya, right, who are eventually going to want to not just say, I don't want to take any hormones or I want to skip puberty, but they're eventually going to mutilate their bodies. Well, Gabrielle Union is not actually Zaya's mother. Stepmother, yes, but not her actual mother. And her biological mother is now standing up. Her name is Siobhan Wade, and she is accusing Dwayne Wade of exploiting their 15-year-old transgender daughter for financial gain. And she's begging a court to intervene to stop her, referring to Zaya, from changing her name and gender on her birth certificate. She wants to end this, right? That is a strong mother standing up and saying, this has gone far enough. I do not care that she is receiving all of these cash and all of this offers because we have a culturally sick society. I'm the mother. I want to protect my child. And Dwayne Wade essentially is saying, I'm not taking any advantage. Me and Gabrielle Union are just supporting Zaya on his journey, and that is totally fine. And it's not totally fine. There's an element of this that makes me believe that Dwayne Wade is sick. There is something wrong here. He's living out something through his child, right? I can't believe that any adult that does not themselves have a mental disorder or themselves are just looking for attention online and likes because it's trending to say, I support the LGBTQRS society, right? I cannot believe that any well-meaning adult would allow their child to go down this path, would allow their child to accept money for harming themselves, right? We know where this is going to end. We know where it's going to end when you wake up one day and you realize that actually, no, you cannot have a productive family. You cannot have a productive lifestyle if you are making a decision to mutilate your body, right? You're going to become a candidate for big pharma drugs and pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life. We know all of these things, and yet people are too scared to say it because they don't want to be called a transphobe. Well, guess what? I'm happy to be called a transphobe when it comes to standing up for children. And that's all I have to say about that. Okay, I want to take a moment to talk to you guys about ExpressVPN. You know I love this company because they keep my internet data secure. We all know big tech spies on our online activity, but have you ever heard of data brokers? They're the people who are collecting and selling all of your online data. Data brokers stitch together detailed profiles of your online browsing history, then sell that profile to advertisers. And you might be surprised to learn that data brokers also sell your information to the Department of Homeland Security and the IRS. For all of these reasons, I protect my online activity with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making it much more difficult for data brokers to identify who you are and create that profile. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of network data to keep your data safe, even on public Wi-Fi. I have ExpressVPN downloaded on all of my devices, including my home Wi-Fi router. It's very simple to use. All I have to do is click one button to turn it on. Protect your online activity with the best VPN money can buy. Visit expressvpn.com/Candace and get 3 extra months free. But you can only get it through my special link. That's expressvpn.com/Candace. expressvpn.com/Candace to learn more. All right, guys, the next portion of the show is going to be available exclusively on Daily Wire Plus. I'm going to be talking about Aaron Carter's death, so if you are not a member yet, go ahead and click the link in the description and subscribe right now.